but then of course, after the seminary, there are rabbinical positions waiting for you. And I went to Rochester, New York for 1 year, a brand new congregation, not a brand new building. We had an old lodge building, which then the congregation then altered to meet their needs, and they did it all by themselves, the members of the congregation did. It was a nice place, but the opportunity, at the end of my first year, the opportunity to come back to Toronto, which I always loved, and to come to Beth Tzedec as an assistant rabbi to no one, because at that time the two rabbis of the two constituent congregations were leaving. Nobody knew who the senior rabbi was going to be, but they needed a rabbi in the meantime. So I took it. I took it for 1 year, and I enjoyed it very much, I have to tell you. But I stayed in Canada all the time. On one or two occasions, I went down to the United States. There were congregations that asked me to come. One was in a couple in New York. One was in Pennsylvania. And they were all very attractive. Certainly in physical and financial terms, more attractive than my position at that time in Ottawa. But I liked Canadian Jewry better. And I had made some very close contacts and friendships, almost on a family level, with people in my Canadian congregations. So I said, well, let them keep all their lovely offers. I'll stay here. And that's what I did.
Well, you were the only rabbi in the history of Beth Tzedec who served as junior rabbi, senior rabbi, and now Rabbi Emeritus.
Well, come to think of it, I guess that's so.
What was it like to start your rabbinic career and conclude it in the same congregation?
And so your question is?
What's your feeling in terms of having that special role, starting it here?
Well, first of all, I think you have to understand that when I came to Beth Tzedec in '55 for the 1 year, it was an exciting experience. I didn't know enough to realize how exciting and in some ways how crazy this was for a young man, a year out of the seminary, to come into this congregation, which was coming together for the first time in its home here, and whose members, at least the members of both congregations, were, I wouldn't say at each other's throats, but there was a lot of antagonism, not between the individual members per se, but between the members as members of former congregations. So they had an executive director at the time, I won't mention his name. This was in July or August, actually it was the end of July of 1955. There was no air conditioning in the offices. There were so many things that were lacking. And the poor executive director, who was a wonderful man in many ways, but he was rattled easily. And so there was a lot of shouting going on and so on. I didn't get involved. I just made sure that the office did what I needed them to do. And my job was to try and get things going, to get the daily minyan going, the Shabbos going, things going, many, many other things. Little did I realize at that time the congregation had about 1,250 or 1,300 families. The facilities, even though we were in this building, the facilities were not great. And here I said, fine, okay. I didn't know enough to know that the facilities were not great. And I knew, of course, that my time here was going to be very limited. But that's all right. I enjoyed it. I used to come home every night. If I got home before 1 o'clock in the morning, it was It was a rare occasion, except for Shabbat. And it was difficult on my wife, who had two babies on her hands. So how I felt about it? I felt being here, I felt being part of this new, quote, spectacular thing, and the things that impressed everybody, and I'm not sure that they would excite me so much now, some of those things, but it was spectacular. And everybody in Toronto was talking about it. And everybody in Canada, I'm talking about the Jewish residents, and many of them in the United States. What this Beth Tzedec? And here I was, this young guy with very little experience, trying to do something with it. And I think in many ways I did. I also made a great number of friends. So much so that when we were in Ottawa, and my son was bar mitzvah there, quite a number of years later, we had a fair number of people coming from Beth Tzedec and from my congregation in London, Ontario, to Ottawa for the bar mitzvah.